Good evening. Salot in it. Ladot. Say hi. Say what's up. You'll go to your see the throw it in the comments. Masi chona horusia dunzinige zinc another Sunday night live. Sahalon tadulti ha ja duhu tadak yeah sits in Kelsey Janvier Bahalia Iltini Sala mental health ga a couple months back a baga yauti di dinya na kola hu aila dinidi baba busy or it's holidays huni there and then finally do February did on show eyes on February yeah and there's that on show Eagles, but it could be different. Do bit as a chalaja. No, nen isn't down. Torian Silnalgin does not. Yathol hot in the by te look ehoni there are hot on the Astane. Chahel don't like don't bit as a cha. The less. Is Jidani aunt as you know? Kabin the last I was on Netherlands. I know the weather that is a day could be at Elsa fog day at El fog yeah at El could be that as a honadala ya tilchu ya chal henny like a bean moose jug AI Robert hello fond the like what's in must you know doen zinnige yas and ohal hunta dultiha, but make sure you share the live video. A just one quick announcement, Jamboni these into Kani Thila Jas it's in I know lots of dene sultene not dead horlunk conference season on tala conference dene no about the year ide MC speaker to a year ide sitene out to dure gabine post us tomorrow afternoon sometime at the Anail Dande. So says the information but get it is it's the website that a Anail Danila but says the email John that is a try see plan of lady MCO to keynote speaking a live streaming auto commentary held a says NALT getting kind of stuck here land by ST I'm trying to do too much at once. Sometimes your subtitles are funny. Yeah. What did I put the subtitles I do? Kelsey Janvier from Janvier, Alberta. Oh yeah. Janvier, Alberta, Julian de la Totele. Kelsey Janvier from Janvier, Alberta. Oh, subtitles, aren't you? Oh yeah, Facebook does its own subtitles, eh? Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. At Yarnigosha. Interesting on Joel. Joel Nazane asked Tiazagabi. Nazi number felt out. I believe Nazi number had this Anna. But Bonul Dio. Imagine that, Dennis Uslina translated letter Facebook. Maybe I should reach out to them. Boring Nyazan Denaha. But anyways, bonul dia dunzinige. Kelsey Janvier Lotelot in Janvier, Alberta, for McMurray another. Dure totina yatialia Kelsey Ted Denedit Agole Dene Artilas mostly Denabalias Tire. Cole banoni au dena I lio to liani. It just, the conversation edrit is to create more awareness at din baba, dena ha nadu denik anel tau dena you beni ketchare yagan yaltiu then it's unreach out on you konti see a baze gan yaltinia so doing zinege masino anesteno tlata see but in hul chude be neo lila Kelsey, not not ubet erul thoroughly. So with that, once again, masi sinias and don't tadege salun tadult the adre berult au and at the hul choosy comments the edu tlizu that the but erul asi sinioli masicho.
Different days.
Okay. I mean all stuff and then okay.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Atlantic Kelsey.
So still, I'm good today, Willis.
Nezu Harel Yangozi for McMurray AI.
Yeah. It's getting colder again, though. It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's -20 today, but it's supposed to be -2 later.
-20.
Yeah.
Oh man, I think all week it's been plus here, John. Rain last night.
Oh,
Yeah. It's weird under weathered. It's just all over the place, it seems like.
yeah. This winter, especially, we had lots of no snow, and then a bit of snow, and now my backyard there's no snow again. Just like nothing.
Yeah. Just like fall all over again, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like Neil Jarrett influ. You ever get scared? Like, is this gonna be the new normal, or especially Fort McMurray? Yeah, not there. You live in Fort McMurray around all the the plants, and maybe that I'm sure it's going to contribute a little bit to some of the weather systems.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I think sometimes, but I don't. I feel like sometimes this is. I think weather kind of changes. I think we need different. But the last couple winters have been really odd. But even last winter we were cold, kind of like normal. But this winter is very very different. So I think things will change over time.
Yeah,
You can tell definitely the weather is changing for I'm sure we all contribute in that as well. But
yeah,
for sure it's changing.
yeah. Especially as the years go on too. And I remember when I first moved to Fort McMurray, there was about 3 feet of snow in 2006, and now you say there's nothing. It's back and forth, it seems like. But as you mentioned here, a lot of things they go back and forth, and we were gonna do this a few months ago, back for Men's Mental Health Week. And I want to thank you, Masin and Nastana Dunzinik, a mental health basis, Ali and Altiha. Yeah, Adlani, then, men's mental health, it seems like more and more people are talking about it. Just your thoughts on men expressing themselves or being vulnerable.
Yeah, I think I think there's still lots of room for improvement because when I think about, I remember a few years ago, I did Movember to really try to raise awareness, raise some funds for men's mental health, and I think you kind of talk to people, you kind of do these stats and you do these things, but then when that's kind of over, um, I see. I mean, I think some people we don't talk about it enough. It's still, I don't know how we move the needle of mental health, especially for men, to talk about like, hey, we all kind of have these days that are bad, some days that are good, and then like months that are good, months that are bad. I think it, kind of like the weather, it kind of changes, and and I've been lucky through through some things. I've been able to take some training on mental health, and I learned a bit about mental health continuum.
Mhm.
Really like to think like people should really look at that. There's some really good explanations of our own mental health, and we can kind of be green and all the way to the red, and kind of just fluctuate. And if you know where you are, you can kind of know what to do to kind of bring it back. And
Yeah.
but yeah, definitely, I think people don't. It's still not a comfortable conversation out there, and I'm sure we all, men and women. Uh, but I think even women, I find it's still hard to talk about mental health. I think mental health is a hard thing to kind of acknowledge.
Mhm. Mhm. Tlant Ani, then why do you think that is? It seems like, as you mentioned here, Movember, everybody, you know, raises money and awareness for the whole month. They grow a mustache. Why do you think it just stops? It almost seems like, if you look at it that way, it almost seems like it'd be like a trend, Like, I kind of wonder what are those gentlemen doing beyond
Hmm.
November, right? What do you think that is? That we do it for a month and then, it kind of slows down, and the same people. Do you ever encounter people that continue doing the work necessary to work on themselves?
I think so. I think that because you can see, and maybe this is why, like with any kind of process or any kind of improvement over time, uh, it has to start kind of small. So yeah, I do see some people talking. I do. I've spoken with other men once in a while, and you can tell you can see what they're doing, and I definitely I've seen people who kind of share in the mental health continuum, and I think the more people that show it, eventually you will get there. I think one of the things I guess is the stigma that kind of holds it back,
Hmm.
right? It's like, oh, you got a problem. Oh, you got you shouldn't be like that. Like just put it to the side. But it's not easy, right? It's not easy just to put things to the side and
Yeah.
everything should be good, right? I don't think life is like that. Uh, and yeah.
Yeah, it's like you said, it just kind of use the analogy with weather too. It always it's different. One week you're good, and the next year just in bad shape. A lot of men actually they deal with suicide and suicidal thoughts. Right, a lot of men
Hmm.
don't know how. Why do you think it is we don't know how to share our feelings?
Well, I think it goes back to, I mean, I guess just the media, be a man, everything is like, you just man up. Like you're not allowed, right? Like, don't cry, don't, and I think, even for myself, what I find is sometimes it's like, I don't cry, but then things will build up to a point where it's like, yeah, I have to, and then once you cry, it's like, oh
Hmm.
wow, now I feel, it's like this release, right? It's like a pressure relief, and I think sometimes it's just it's media, it's some cultures, it's yeah, you're supposed to be strong, and sure, a lot of us are strong, you know and but there's definitely times that people might be dealing through grief, people might be dealing through um, you know children, relationships, work. There's all kinds of things that can that affect you, and I think it's better eventually time. And then there's some media. There's a great song out there called I think it's by Dax. It's to be a man, and the guy. It's a really good song, and it kind of you know talks about this stuff, right? And people don't want to talk about like some of the bad thoughts maybe you've had, right? And
Yeah.
and I think if I think over time through different people's lives, I bet a lot of people have had bad thoughts, and but I think as long as one thing that's helped me is kind of being grateful, finding things to be, have some gratitude.
Yeah.
I think, I think just having some gratitude in every day is um, really does help. There's a lot of days that I have. bad days, just like anybody, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You know, I have, but those are the things I think is kind of stopping us. I think one day it'll be, but I don't think anytime soon. But I think one day it'll be kind of a normal conversation, or you'll have conversations with friends, a lot more open,
Yeah.
right? It'll be a lot to be easy. And I think that's where it'll start. I think it'll start with like, you know, um, it'll be easy to talk to, to a brother, to a friend, and kind of talking about your mental health thing. Like these are the, and it doesn't have to go all the way to the, like really bad, right? Suicidal thoughts. It's just like, hey, it's just these are little. It's rough right now, right? And I think it's gonna be. I think eventually with Movember, it'll kind of continue. And one of the things that I read a really good book on reconciliation, but it kind of reminded me it's not like it's not a sprint, right? It's a marathon, and I think we treat it that way. Like these, that's why November just feels like, and then people forget. It's kind of
Mhm.
like and in the book it talked about you know um, the graves in Kamloops, right? And it was this big, huge uproar, and people were like, and then it kind of where did it go after that, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's the same as in November. It's like, okay, it's 1 month, but how do we actually find ways to actually talk about it more and more? And I think slowly. I don't. Again, I don't see it anytime soon.
Yeah.
Not like tomorrow, but I think it's conversations like this um, that will allow people to be like, hey, yeah, it is. Maybe someone will listen to this and be like, yeah, it's okay to actually, you know, talk to my friends about, yeah, I'm having whatever,
Hmm.
I, I'm really struggling with my golf game or something. It's like
Yeah.
it's really making me like mad, and or it could be something different, right? Or and a lot of people I know, they deal with this like money issues and all
Hmm.
kinds of things, right? And it's just like I think we can get to a point where it's like, hey, yeah, and another thing I did, and I think I'd like to do more of that just to be able to help myself. But there's a training I took called mental health first aid. It's like, how do you help people,
Mm.
right? And but I only take little snippets of different things. And one
Yeah.
of the things that it kind of like it's hard to tell people like when you're listening. It's more just to listen. And and one thing I learned, it's hard to tell people. And one thing I wouldn't do is right or wrong, but it's like just telling people, yeah, it's going to be okay, but because you don't know if it's going to be okay,
Hmm.
right? And I think sometimes it's important just to listen,
Yeah.
be there for that person,
Hmm.
and I think I do think more and more people will be to that point where it's like, hey, I'll have coffee or breakfast or just a call,
Hmm.
and I think eventually go, you know, if you look at how many friends people have on their social media, but how many of them could they actually truly go, hey, can I talk? But I think one day it'll actually, maybe of the 1,000 friends, you might have 10,
Hmm.
right? Or scroll through your phone, and who could you actually get to? And I think that was one of my suggestions, or like I have a couple people that I know that I can talk to, but you also got to, in my head, I think what stops us is you don't want to put it on that person,
Hmm.
right? You're having and I think it's another thing you don't want to share because you don't want to, but there is people you can talk to professional, but I do having a couple of people that you can really as long as they're just there to listen and not to solve your problems is I
Yeah.
think is okay. But I think one of the things that stop people from reaching out is like, oh, I don't want to put this on that person,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's I know you've called me a few times and said, hey, you got time, and that was one of the things you brought up too, is when like he's probably busy or something, right? Like
Yeah,
one of the things I've learned in my recovery is that you're not you're probably helping the other person as well,
mm,
but that mindset stops us, right?
yeah,
If you think of it that way, you change the mindset of I don't want to be a burden, but maybe if you go into these rooms and 12-step meetings and all that stuff, right? it's you'll hear this language. So it's a good thing that you reach out and you acknowledge that stuff. And I think these conversations, someone might come to you and say, hey, I'm going through the same thing too, right? Like if they see this,
Yeah, and I think also, like, I mean, maybe you reach out to somebody. I think what'll happen is you can help each other, right? Because maybe that person needs something to get off their chest too, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
I think it's a good one. And I think one of the things I kind of wanted to talk about too is kind of like how you deal with things. And I think and trying to find healthy ways to do it, right? Because I think if we, in the mental health continuum, it talks about, like, you're in four states, right? You're in green to red, and it's healthy, which is you're good, and reacting, where you kind of like go, now you're starting to, kind of get irritable, and then you're injured, and then in the last is red, where it's illness, and many people who get the illness part need help, right? It's like medical help, not like, they got to go to see a doctor. But within all of these is like, how can you come back? And then I find in the summer I'm much better because I'm a golfer, so I can, I have a release, I have something I can do, and then come winter, it's gloomy, it's cold, I don't have that automatic thing to go. And so in the winter, what I find kind of helps me is, I like to read, so I'll read, try to read a bit. Um, I do game, I play video games, but I think, I think it's better to be physical, right? Maybe exercise, maybe that's why I like about golf, because it releases. You know, I think
yeah.
physical activity is a good way to deal with
It's a reward.
get your, yeah.
It's a reward too. Like you hit a good shot. Oh man, like golf
Yeah,
is very up and down. It's very much like life, right?
yeah,
You
yeah,
get knocked down and okay,
yeah,
what am I gonna do? Like the self-talk becomes normal.
yeah, yeah. And you can see a lot of parables between the two, right? And you know, I know there's been one year I definitely agreed for my golf game. Like I was, and it's like, man, I should just quit this game. But I got through that, and I think, and again, I think I want to talk about a little bit about stuff around, like, because again, I like maybe talk about my experiences. Right, I lost my father a few years ago, and um, grief is something like will play on your mind a lot, and I know we all do that.
Yeah.
But I also think that's a normal part of life, and I think it's how you prepare yourself. And I mean, my dad, it was cancer that he passed away from, and I remember the only one good thing about cancer was I got to like build up to that leaving part, right? Whereas, if you lose somebody suddenly, I think would be it's hard. Losing someone you care for is really hard anyway. But I said that
Mhm.
was the only one good thing, right? They told us he had 6 months, so I had 6 months to prepare. And like anything, if you can prepare a little bit, and it will help you. And I think same thing with our mental health is kind of prepare, and anybody Google mental health continuum. There's a bunch of YouTube videos. There's a bunch of and maybe some areas might have some training, like in your communities.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody can come talk. But I know it's helped me. I'm definitely not. I'll tell you, I'm not definitely perfect in this space of my own mental health space.
Yeah.
Um, I'd say most of the days are really good, right? Like, it's like I have a really good life, but that doesn't mean I can not have a bad day,
Yeah.
right? For whatever reason. And I think we just need to get to a point where we're having, a majority of our days is healthy, right?
Mm.
If we can have that, I think it sets up ourselves for a little bit more, I guess, success in our own mental health.
Yeah. And it's all about creating conversation too, I mean, uh the focus would be on to make it easier. It's like you live a good life, and me too, like I'm okay, I'm alive, I always say. But you mentioned a little bit of grief and loss there. I was going to get into it because after November, you got the holidays.
Hmm.
As you mentioned, you can prepare a long time, but grief, as you've probably experienced too, it comes in different times. It's got no schedule, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the things you do to get through the holidays? Because I know families come together and you get, I lost my dad to cancer too, but just thinking about
I
some of the things I do, like how do you get through that?
I think for me is like I think with my dad, um, and I have two brothers that I lost is and so those times where I've lost them, those time of the year are always tough. But I think going to the good memories, you know,
Mhm.
going to the good memories, I think really helps. And then having during the holidays is spending time with family. I think goes a long way. And just thinking about, for me, I think more of the good times, not the time that I lost them.
Mhm.
Right? 'Cause it's easy to go to those spots, and I think you can even you know go to maybe go to the negative things of those relationships that you might have had. And I think that I don't think that's helpful or useful. So I try to avoid those kind of memories. I try to think of the good parts of them all the time.
Yeah.
um and I think that really does help me. And I think understanding, and again, I don't I'm not a expert or anything. It's just how I deal with it. I think knowing that grief can hit you, you know, any time. Like example, my father. There's this great song by James Blunt called "Monsters," and then if everybody's, maybe lost a dad. I think it's you know, it's a song where it's like it put me to where my dad. I was holding his hand, and it talks about the song really goes. It's like, you know, I'll watch for the monsters now. Like, you rest, right?
Mhm.
And growing up, I slept with my dad. I think till I was like 8 or something. And I used to remember hearing these noises in the kitchen, right? And I'd ask my dad, "Can I'm thirsty." So he'd always get up and go get water. But in my head, he's like taking care of the monsters, right? And
Mhm.
then so when the song came out, is like finding these things that can help you, and that really it's a really kind of a sad song, but also powerful and so fun. I don't know. I find these things that help me.
Mhm.
And usually, what with grief, it's the memories. I think the good memories.
Yeah. It's always, music tells a story in our lives, a time in our lives. It's very cool you make that connection together, to keep it going. One of the tough things is to get to solutions, right?
Mhm.
How hard is it? You have your own way, but how tough was it, or how long did it take for you to, finding these solutions and not staying stuck?
I think, are you talking more like around the kind of the low points, like with grief
Like,
or?
yeah, like dealing with all the mental health and grief, like we get stuck and then like, okay, we tend to stay there. We don't know how to find the
Yeah.
solutions.
Yeah, I think for me I guess it's kind of by trial and error for me. It's like um when somebody gave me a good piece of advice one time. It was a work. This person used to stay really calm all the time, and I asked them, like, wow, like, how do you do that, right? How do you? And he said, when bad things happen, whatever they are, right, you can't change that bad thing. And then it's the next step. It's like, okay, what do I do now? And that one piece of advice has helped me like immensely,
Mhm,
immensely, right? Even when my dad and my one brother had cancer as well. Because you can't change it, but then it's like, okay, and to me, I'm like a logical person. It's like, okay, now what,
mhm,
right? So, so with my brother, I remember when it's like, okay, well, now what? Now what do we do, right? It really helps if you realize, hey, you can actually, you know,
mhm.
you can't change that. Or say, I guess example, you go to the casino and or I like to gamble. It's one of my things I like to do, but I don't do it often. But it's like, but then you say you lose, a couple $100 or whatever it is, and then you're like, and I would not recommend that, because it's not, in my head, it's not healthy to lose money, because then you're like, oh, now I lost it, and you feel bad. But say, now what, right? But anything is like, oh, perfect example. Golf, and I mean, I don't know how many people will listen to that golf, but it's like you have a really bad hole, right? It's like, I shot a triple bogey, which is like I shot 3 over on this hole. I was supposed to take 5. I shot 8,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't change that now. And it's really helped me. It's really helped me. And it's like, okay, now what? Well, I just got to get the next shot. The next shot is just be good the next shot. So I think, with anything, again, game, they found out my dad had 6 months. Okay, now what? And of course, we tried to find other solutions that, maybe it wasn't 6 months, but in my mind, they're like 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now what do we got to do now? Well, we got to get him into the treatment. We got to do this. We got to,
Yeah.
um, and so with anything for me, I think that's really helped is that solution, right? If you're having, you're irritable, you're nervous, like you start in my head, you're like, okay, I'm going the wrong way. I need to find little ways. And I think as of late, I've been trying to do more healthier things,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? I think if you can find healthy things to deal with that, and a lot of times I think um, a lot of people do negative things, right?
Yeah.
Like example, like I would not recommend going to the
Escape.
casino. Because you go to the casino, you might escape a little bit. Hey, you might win a bit, but then you'll lose and it'll be really unhealthy. So, but I know if I go into the driving range to hit golf balls, I feel better,
Yeah.
right? It's healthy. It's healthy. Do healthy things.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can find healthy things to do, go talk with friends, go laugh. I think if you
Yeah.
can laugh, I think it helps. Find healthy things. I think is the best. Um, I'm starting to learn as I get older is find healthier things.
Older and
Um,
wiser for sure. I know Netrani te antle de linila, um, like I know your brother, I know your whole
mm,
family. Your sister, they just gifted me a drum actually,
mm.
recently, and I've heard her speak about your dad a lot and all that things. Did he ever share anything with you guys about back in the day? You know how we talk about men's mental health and how we don't talk about things. You mentioned culture. It could be the culture. Did
Mhm.
he ever talk about anything, a man, in Dennis Ukraine culture? Chinyana, they provide and all that stuff. Did
I
they ever?
think with my no, I think with my dad, I was never really talked about that. But I think for me, I learned by watching, right?
Mm,
I watched him go to the bush. But the biggest thing I seen him do is, I don't think I ever see my dad not work.
mm,
You know, um, but I never seen him not work. So in my head, it's like I think that developed me. I think, I've been with the same company for 25 years, and I think I've had, you know, I haven't been sick very often. Right, I got to go to work. I get up every single day. Right?
yeah.
Every single day, I get up, 5:30, quarter to 6. I get ready and I go to work, and I think that's so. But he did share a few things later on in life, but nothing. This is what you need to do. This is what he
Mm,
gave some really good advice. And one thing I did learn from my dad, and I think like his faith was so strong in both in our spiritual, um, but he was also very strong faith in Catholic, and I knew that. Like but he prayed. My dad was very strong when he prayed. So sometimes I do that. I don't forget. Hey, we can pray.
mm-hmm.
Um, and I think one of the things that maybe we're missing, especially for me personally, who I've been living in an urban city for many years, is forgetting that we have powerful ceremony, powerful,
Mm-hmm.
and I touched base with a gentleman, and he said, you should come out to ceremony, like we, and um, and one day I will, and I think it's something we forget that we have to help
Mm-hmm.
us. I
Yeah.
think that's one thing I think we forgot. And maybe not everybody. I know I forget that. Hey, we have a very powerful spirits out there and powerful um, help have powerful help out there. We just,
Yeah.
I think we forget to tie it in.
Hmm.
And I think one of the things that's really helped me is my family, and I can't forget my mom. My mom is like, my mom is like I always say she's the strongest person I know with what she's had to go through in her life. But you don't have to be strong, right? I know she's only strong because had to be,
Hmm.
right? But I know in her mind, I'm sure she's not like strong, but she shows this strong piece, and learned so much from my mom as well. And from my families, right? I have a very large family, and learning from each of them is important. One of the best thing I have is just, you know, I'm sure they don't mind me sharing, but it's just, I have there was 5 boys. There's 3 of us left, 2 older
Hmm.
brothers. Um, when one of my brothers started, we have a morning text now. It's just a good morning text. That's it. And sometimes it's a conversation about different, but it's nice to have that connection. Like I said, like, if you really need to, I'm sure there's people you can reach out to. But
Yeah.
it's something I learned or we've been doing you know for the last couple of years, and it really helps me as the little brother. I think, and I don't know if they know that, but I think it helps me, and it really
Yeah.
helps me to know. And I look forward to this in the morning. I know and I feel like sometimes we try to beat each other through the good morning text. So sometimes it's like 6:30, 5:30.
Yeah. It gets
Very rare, very rarely it's like 9, which is interesting, right? Like we all get up kind of early.
yeah.
So those are the things that I think having people, but I think also talking about it, right? If you can talk about mental health, it's still not a comfortable thing to talk to. Even now, it's like, but I'm like, you know what? We need to talk about it. So I'm
Mhm.
going to willing to share what I have, and I'm really thankful you asked me to do this. And I think maybe there is a reason why we couldn't do it in November, right?
Mhm.
Okay, now November, we did in November, we forget about it. It's December,
Maybe. Yeah.
but hey, maybe we're doing it in February, and it's actually okay to talk about mental health in February too,
Yeah.
right? So maybe it happened for a reason,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know. Um,
That's a cool thing you guys do. I know. No naibig oshao. When I listen to you talk and Marina to you, it bananes through it. It's like all the teachings. You guys have helped me too. From your dad.
mhm.
It passes along. It's in our Dene culture for sure. One of the things is you talked about you've worked in the oil industry for 25 years and you're a manager now. Um, what are some of the things the company does for mental health, for men's mental health? I know there's probably a lot of guys out there. I know I was one of them. Maybe they're hanging out, renting a room, going to work for 2 weeks, only get to see their kids. You encounter a lot of that stuff as a manager?
No, I think. I mean, I'm sure I've seen it. I'm sure people are. Um, but I think one of the things that at least with the company I've been able to do some training, which is really interesting. Right, this is not something that that we that we've seen in the past. I think, and this is what I think is good because of things like Movember. People are actually saying it's okay to
Mm,
actually talk and learn because I think it helps all those people, right? All the employees, if their mental health is in a better state. So I see it happening more and more. So I think and I'm sure and I don't think it's just oil and gas now. I'm sure now you're starting to see these different things that happen in the in the cities, right?
mhm.
Like, and I see, and so I still think it's still a long ways to go, but at least people are talking about it,
Yeah.
right? And I think it's really, really good. Um, and I like it that it's not always only sometimes about men, but I'd say because I'm a man, I feel like it's hard to talk about, but also I think for everybody in general,
Mhm.
right? I think everybody in general it's hard to talk about um, mental health,
Yeah.
right? So I want to make sure that we realize it's not just probably a man issue, um, but I think it's harder for men because I find, or not harder, but like some things, like again, crying, right?
Yeah.
Tours out there, man, it's okay to cry, right?
Yeah.
It's okay to cry, like. I think people forget that crying's natural. How many of us, if you think about when did you stop crying, right? We cry when we're a baby,
Cry
right?
when
And
you're
then
born.
and then it's like, but then at some point it's like, you start to get hurt, and it's like, hey, like, don't cry, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
you got hurt, right? Like, you hurt your arm, hurt your leg, or whatever. Hey, don't cry. So I think that it kind of starts at some point, but I think it's okay to cry. I think people have to. I think it's our natural release.
hmm
It's our natural release. Our body has this mechanism that, you know, if you get hurt hard enough, you're gonna cry,
yeah,
right? So I think, but then it feels better, and I think, so I think for people, I, and I think sometimes I think about that. It's like, oh, maybe I just need to cry, but then it's hard to cry too.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
hard to cry too, right? It's like
Force it. You can't force
you
it.
can't you can't force the cry, right? It's gonna come out when it comes out,
Yeah,
and so I want to make sure people, if they get something out of here, it's that it's okay to do that. It's okay to not feel good,
hmm
right? I think it's a normal thing. It's okay not to feel good, uh, but it's also like you want you want to find a way to feel good, whatever that. Everybody has their own. Maybe some people do do different things to make them feel good, as long as it's healthy, a
yeah,
good way. I think it's I think there's a lot of ways not to do it, right?
mm,
We find ourselves going, either gambling or drinking or whatever. I think that's not a healthy way. Um, I think get out in nature. One of the best things for our people, and any people, is to be in nature. I think it really helps me too. I remember
yeah,
a couple of
yeah.
years ago, I took our daughters last winter. We took our daughters to the bush. We went for lake and we went ice fishing. Man, that was one of the best weekends we had in a long time.
hmm
Right. So I think it's just get out in nature really helps you.
hmm You know, one of the things, Tate Dene I know, Dene Hutlaba in that's why we're
Uh,
doing this in English, but, you know, 25 years, a long time, for McMurray 9 there.
and I lived here longer, right? So I think
Longer.
because yeah, we didn't have high school in grade. We had to move in grade 9, so around I think it was 93 or 92. I had to move here, and I was lucky. I got to move with my sister. She lived here. Many of my friends didn't have. They had to live with like different billets or different people, right? But I
Yeah.
was lucky. My sister, I was able to live with her, and um, it really helped me. But I've been living here for, geez, 30, yeah, 30, probably 30 years now.
30 years, yeah. As you mentioned too, you grew up out in the bush, on the res, and then you moved to the city. Now, you find you got to go home more to kind of reset. Like you mentioned, it's good to go on the land. You took your daughters and show that you got to
Mm.
go home and kind of step foot on the res and okay, let's go again. Do you ever
I'd say that's one thing. Yeah, we go out, but I'd say, this one, something I don't take advantage of is home. It's only like an hour away.
Mhm.
But anytime I go there, I feel so good. But because I get this reset, and it definitely resets you, and it definitely, you know, my one daughter loves her cousins. I know she's just like, she sees them, and even if it's like, she doesn't see them often, but they're
Mhm.
her cousins, right? They're her cousins, and she goes up there. Um, she plays, and so, but just being on the land, we go to, we have our camper out in Conklin where my mother-in-law, um, and we go out in the bush
Mhm.
there, right? And just being on the land, the girls, we went grouse hunting, chicken hunting last fall, and they got some, that was nice. They get to experience that.
Mhm.
Um, so definitely, anytime I get out there, it does feel good. One of the things I started to try to do again is starting to go out hunting. So like every fall, I'm like the last 3 falls I've went out, and I think it's really helped.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and as going to like anytime you can go out on the land, that's I feel it too. I always feel it. See, I've actually this is the 18th year. So I've lived away from home the same amount of time I've lived there
Mm,
this year. So a lot of similarities there too. So I feel it when I don't go home and I'm just in the city too long. And
mm.
you know, duhu zinige mental health base yet. A lot of things we've talked about, people. What would you like to see in the future? I know you kind of touched on it a bit, but more things like for men. I know you want to generalize it, but I think it's important for men because a lot of times we don't see men participate in these conferences, or they kind of just sit back. What would you like to see just going forward?
Yeah, I think if there was more men specific type, like these little gatherings or these uh, yeah, these conferences or just meetings, if there was a, where you could actually talk, I think, I wouldn't call it, I'm sure you like you said, 12 steps. Imagine if there was a place we could all go to and be like, hey, this is what I'm dealing with my mental health,
Hmm.
right? And it was a confidential area to sit and be really vulnerable and not have to worry about you know, or you go out and then they're like, oh, Willis, went to this meeting and he was like crying and he was
Hmm.
sharing and then people making fun of that versus like a place where you could go and it's like, hey, what happens here? We get to talk and we all leave. I
Yeah.
think having like, because we have those, there's probably those kind of things in different forms or fashions, but I think just that'd be kind of cool around mental health or else mental health, like a gathering of sorts for men.
Hmm.
Um, but even just like small things, I think just being able to have conversations with your friends,
Yeah.
right? How often can you think back there when you're talking to your friends and it's about what you're dealing with or what, like it's never, right? It's like, it's more like, but I think we do that to ourselves because it's like, oh, I want to talk. So you talk about golf or you talk about, sports or you talk about, but you don't actually say, hey, this is how I'm feeling,
Yeah.
like you ever, you know, yeah, I'm feeling really anxious about this job interview. I'm feeling, no, you never like, so I think being a spot, I think this is a step, right? It's like, it's little steps. Like,
Hmm.
in my head, it'd be cool to have like this huge place where we're actually talking again. That's why I said I don't think it happening in use. But if you can kind of start making it okay to have a conversation like this with your friends,
Hmm.
right? You're sitting around you know a fire or in a golf cart or in a making it okay to be like, yeah, I'm having a bad week this week.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think um, or yeah, or like it's little things. That the other day I got a new office. I was really happy. Like seeing the sun was, I had an office with no window for many years, and now I have an office with a window, and I was like, oh wow, that makes a difference. The sun makes a difference.
Yeah.
See, it's getting bright out now, so it's nice. It's supposed to get warm.
I know. I know. It's good. It's good
But I
to.
think that's what I'd like. I'd like that if I could get to a point where, you know, like I think for the people that really need it, is having a place that's confidential and being places that where you can be vulnerable and people like, having that like a support group for people
Hmm.
who are maybe, if you look at the health continuum, it's like there's four pieces, right?
Hmm.
But one of them being injured, which means like you're not quite needing like medical, like, you got to go to the hospital type thing, but there's a place where it's like, okay, how can we talk? How can we, you know, how can we ask for help before it gets to a really bad space? Is having more help there, because the first part you can kind of, the first two, if you're healthy, you're in the yellow, which is reacting. Is you might be able to just get that through with friends, right?
Hmm.
Or your own health, in a good way.
Yeah. I
And I
was.
think that's where, for me, I think if we can normalize these kind of conversations around mental health, I think we'd help a big majority. and then maybe having support groups, um, things we can call, things we can, I think that's where that, all that Movember stuff will probably help, like
Mhm.
the awareness that this is a real thing. It's not a, and again, I wanted to share today. It's not super comfortable sharing, but I'm like, you know what? I need to share. I need to share what I, kind of know. And I think the more we share, maybe I'm sure, oh, wow, like, if that person can feel it, then I can feel it too. Right?
Yeah, that's definitely how it is too. Yeah, I did look at that model, and I understand what you mean. Like it's not injured, or you when you look at yourself, just being mindful of your own body is it takes a
Mm,
lot too, right? And your mind, when you're dealing with this stuff too, it would be good. You are a safe space for a lot of people as well. I would encourage you to continue doing that. It's like that's where it starts, I believe. Okay, hey, how
mm,
you doing, man? All that good stuff, right? To carry
yeah.
that on. I got two more questions, or no, one more question, actually. And superhero nell'ande dlanti nell'ole. If you were a superhero, what would you be in Marvel, and why?
Uh, that's a funny question because I'm like, when I want to be, for sure, someone that could fly.
Someone that
You
could.
know, you could see like, you know, you don't have to be, like somebody that could fly, but then it was like, like Bruce Banner is really smart. Like he can fly, but
Yeah,
then they're a smart guy, right? They're the ones that like, hey, we need to figure this out.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, and me, I just want to fly so I could see see from above, but
yeah,
but then be the smart guy.
yeah, yeah.
You know,
That's pretty good. Yeah,
yeah,
kind of stumped you there. Eh? You weren't
yeah,
expecting.
yeah. I was like, what am I gonna? I'm gonna, yeah. If you think about it, I wonder what kind of superhero you'd be, right? Like, but for sure, I think you'd want to fly.
you know, it's good to have these mental health talks, but you got to remember to laugh too.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it's good. And
Yeah,
I'll end it with a joke because I think a lot of people maybe will. I made this joke up, so I think it's super funny, but I
that.
know a lot of people, a lot of people in our culture, we all, I think we'll all get this, or anybody that dirt bikes or snowmobiles, and so I said, what does the baby skidoo say when they need to find his mom or wants to talk to their mother?
What?
Mum, 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 mum.
That is the cheesiest dad joke.
And I made that one up, and I said I really like that one. It's like I think kids in Skidoo or dirt bike would get that one. It's funny. So
Yeah,
at least I like to think of my kids are they don't think I'm funny, but I like to think I'm funny.
yeah. It's funny too. My daughter is the same way. We both have daughters, so I think maybe it's just girls, But
Yeah.
mas sine nestan la dun dinige salon time di Kelsey
Mm.
si no di dene ha yet dene ha yetini aren't inde. If you want to leave one last message, I'll leave it to you, and we will sign off. Masi.
Okay. Yeah. I think thank you for this time, Willis. I know it took a couple weeks to try to get this, or actually a couple months. I really appreciate giving me this space. And I think for you, and I told you that before, is keep doing this. You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I love that it's not just about language now. You're helping people with this.
Mm-hmm.
I think I don't know if you know how much you're helping people.
Mm-hmm.
So keep doing it, right? Keep sharing our language. We've talked about language lots. Keep sharing that, but having this space and having the space to talk about these things, I think are really important. And so please keep up that. You know, I'm sure there's times where you're up and down with this, but it's really good work. It's really important work. So make sure you share your voices as much as you can, and give people the space to talk about these things.
Mhm.
And whether, 5 people listen to this or, a couple hundred, I think it's going to help. And many of those, right? I've listened to many of the podcasts, and I think keep doing that. And thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for the time.
Mhm.
Your time is valuable. So thank you.
Merci. Merci Cho, Kelsey, dun zinige na bahara liamale.
Thank you.
Aho.
Merci.
Alrighty, salutina yi Kelsey Janvier de la lo tailot in duhu tintli nadderla about 30 years unkani la for McMurray 9 there, dene dit agole dene altila. But so kundu yorel inia ya totina tia ilia, but hopefully but in lata see who'll choose don't you see ya tira no hanik etch see no ba ho enani then le ho la duat right, especially do holidays who there Banani there you kind of look back and reflect on over the last few months. Ku holidays and holiday te stress it, because a lot of consumerism, presents or tata si anani there, and then oh man, who thinks just like a relief lant and a bit and do who saw who there, right? Do who February la next week there that's al Valentine's Day but who he de la benaushni and I would lazy but one of the things that bunidally every morning good morning at Sadat Dila, right? That's another good thing, then it's an to good morning or something, whatever it may be. Nazon de la Batora I do a relationship nelot in a hell, So good stuff, Nazon. Hello everybody. Darin Ozzy da doing zinige tade Valentine's Day ha and bed zinon de la Valentine's Day ke. Hey? Do whom PA others, huh? But maybe one of your sweethearts hell, you know dinner kind of out anchava banai niuna. What about me? Wait, video and basudi. But anyways, mas we will chat again next Sunday. Every Sunday live on the lamp. All this week recording Dene hell. Gabi Arsenal yes tuk I tailored so you'll catch that the following Sunday and then the following Sunday. So just trying to get ahead of Duhu Sabalade 26 will try. Yeah, language forum ganeze down de la Calgary, Alberta. I don't know. Last time ni full niyasan, but an email line lada you can probably get in and register as a delegate. AFN Language Forum, the February 27th, Gaboni, the 28, 29 Calgary. And if you're interested, I will. Pretty sure I posted it already. It's post check it out. But anyways, one last thing is. Joel Betsia talked about this. Betra, Betsila Betra. Yeah, Abine Zundari de good morning. It's Bananis, sir. Abine Zune tomorrow is a good day. Henisa. And then Enisa Henny Ashne the good morning that did it. Tain tune that dinner. Tain tune. It's another way of saying good morning. So very interesting. Then I do a different perspective and but or our but see a very leha. So tonight teo tesu gabi Monday on the start your week off fresh. Must see show. Have a good night. Aho.